I had to make the toughest decision of my life, and that was to give her daughter away to her dad to live. I started that next 6 months of my life living on the streets.
We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather today, the Noongar Wadandi Mort. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging.
Scratch the surface and everyone has a story. Welcome, Kaya, to the wisdom of women.
Today's guest has had an amazing life journey, and it has made her into the resilient woman she is today.
Welcome, Anne Dunstall. I hope I said that right.
Yes, you did.
And you certainly have a tale of strength from adversity, that's for sure.
Yes, I certainly do. Through my own lived experience in grief, my parents passed away it would be just over 11 years ago now, which led me down the path of self-destruction with addiction. I've always fighted addiction with my whole life for 20 years on and off, but my addiction spiralled out of control when they passed away. They passed away quite close together within a 9-month period, and my daughter and I were living with my parents. I was also in a relationship at that time which was quite abusive and controlling, and I felt so alone in my journey. I moved into a place in town in Bunbury with my daughter, and the relationship with my boyfriend got worse and worse to the point where I ended up in emergency department in the hospital with facial lacerations and a bruising to my face. So it was after then that I pressed charges and I went down that path of attempting to try and heal my life. Didn't know how to. At that time I didn't know where to reach out to get the supports that I needed. I was fortunate enough that when I was in the emergency department of the hospital, one of the support workers or social workers reached out to me and linked me in with a women's refuge here in Bunbury. And I was discharged from hospital to the refuge for a week. I left there to go back to my home to an eviction notice on my door, and I was then evicted. So I had to start the journey of not having anywhere else to live, and I had people in my life that attempted to support me. They may not have been the best choice in my life at the time because I was still in addiction. So my daughter and I moved from home to home for about 5 months, just bunking with people and moving all my furniture around. And after doing that for 5 months, I had to make the toughest decision of my life, and that was to give her daughter away to her dad to live, where she spent 6 months living with her dad. And I started that next 6 months of my life living on the streets. So I went to Busselton, lived some time down in Busselton, and then came back up here to Bunbury and was living on the streets here of Bunbury. So I spent a lot of my time down near the back beach and around that area. I tried to stay away from the hustle and bustle. It was then that I started to understand what it's like for someone to be homeless and living in the face of the community. The shame that I felt at the time, the embarrassment that I felt that my life had led me to that point in my life. Through choices and through my own decisions at the time. I didn't really know what I was losing though, like through my addiction. So for me to be living on the streets here in Bunbury, that was really my turning point in my life where I started to work on my addiction, and I started to try and break free from my addiction. And if it wasn't for that, I possibly may not have been here today. 6 months doing it tough, living out there on the streets, we became our own social network. But I also know sometimes I reached out for help and it was not there. So part of my life, I felt like I needed to do it on my own. And for me to have worked through what I've gone through, I needed to do it on my own to be the strong person that I am today. 6 months of living on the streets, my daughter would often come and see me. She would always want to spend time with me down there. She'd want to spend the night with me on the street. But I was encouraging her that she needed to stay at her dad's. She needed to be safe. She needed to attend school. She needed to keep some normality in life. And that was one of the toughest decisions of my life, was to have to give her to her dad. But I knew that I needed to do it for myself so that I could be there for her later on in life. 6 months on the streets, hanging with the street people. The street people became my family. It's amazing just how the community and the people that were around, we all knew who was living on the streets, but we just became one big family. Everyone watched out for everyone, made sure that everyone was safe, and, checking in on each other. I would use the in-town lunch centre, the Shoestring Cafe, on a regular basis. I would have breakfast there in the mornings and sometimes stay for lunch. And, on the weekends I would utilise some of the church services that were around town. So the Vineyard Church for breakfast in the mornings on Sunday. I would always also go down to the Mother Tara Meditation Centre Sunday mornings. So my routine was to go to church in the morning for breakfast and then go down and meditate Sunday mornings. And that was just my routine. That's how I tried to keep sane in the most toughest time of my life. I did not like falling asleep. I didn't like sleeping during the day. I liked to stay awake and try to fit in to the norm of society. Like, it's really difficult. Like, I wanted to go. I would go out and have a cup of coffee. I didn't want people to know that I was homeless, and it was really sad because we are faced with that every day these days. And I think for myself, a lot of that came from the fear of judgment of other people. I managed to get myself into a unit. I applied for a unit and then went over to Queensland to visit my best mate. She was my soul sister, and whilst I was over there, I spent a week and a half there, and I booked a one-way ticket. I took my backpack, that's all I had, and I just walked the streets over there until I managed to get on one of the Sky buses and, from the airport, and then onto the trains to get up to Bega in New South Wales, and stayed there for a week and a half and decided, right, I'm coming back. And I wasn't coming back to no home. I was still coming back to living on the streets. And I drew the line in the aeroplane and thought, no, I'm coming back and I'm going to get myself, and I'll couch surf. I'll do what I need to do to get a home and get my daughter back. And came back to Bunbury, and then within a month of couch surfing, I'd found out I'd been approved for my unit, which was absolutely amazing. I got myself into my unit. Within a week, my daughter was back in my care. The local church groups were absolutely amazing with helping me get a bed for my daughter to sleep in and get me bits and pieces. And the generosity of the community was just absolutely wonderful. So I did a lot of art therapy for myself as well. Whilst living on the street, I drew, and I just would follow where I needed to be, and I would draw some iconic areas around Bunbury. And once I got myself into my unit, a lady that I had met reached out to me to see if I wanted to put some of my artwork on display for Mental Health Week. So I did. So I put I did a no fixed address exhibition. So that was all the stuff that I'd created when I was living on the streets, and put an exhibition on of all my artwork that I'd done. And I also did another exhibition incorporated into that of when I moved into my unit, and I did a glowing neon artwork display. So my art therapy for me was a massive part of my journey to help me heal through lots of bright colours, and the glowing artwork display was amazing. I had a centrepiece of a mannequin that was painted as an avatar, and she was my centrepiece, and she was my new creation of myself. It was almost like it was of myself that I was bringing into this world. And she glowed. She was just absolutely amazing under a black light. She was an avatar. She was, like I'm thinking about her now, and I'm just like feeling the energy that she created in my life, and absolutely amazing. That was one of my highlights of coming out of my hard times into that, and being recognised for some of my things that I've done. And I got myself into a place where I wanted to reach out, and I wanted to help the community. I wanted to give back in some way. Didn't know how. I was volunteering for a animal rescue place, Wildlife Care Bunbury, and helping out there. And I was given a little Joey to hand raise, and the Joey would get me out of bed in the morning, and it gave me something to feel important, something that was so dependent on me. I had my daughter, which was great, but the Joey was so little and it was so dependent. It wasn't until I got myself into my home that the real work started for me, because
Was you still addicted at that point?
I was clean. I'd used twice on the street, didn't like it. So me going into my unit was my new chapter, the start of my new life.
I'm just sitting here listening to you and I'm absolutely gobsmacked because you've managed to articulate what are some incredible years
Yeah.
of clearly a trauma impact and spiralling down
Yeah.
and just being so disconnected with your community, your society, your family.
Yeah.
Can we just go back a little
Yeah,
bit
yeah.
and we can come back to that because
Yeah.
I think there's a few
I'm just
areas
going-
that
Yeah.
we need to talk about.
Yep.
You talk about how your mum and dad's passing
Yep.
was a pivotal moment, a big impactful moment. So prior to that, how had life been? You were in a relationship
Yep.
at that stage.
Yep, I
that
was working. I was actually working in a government job, and had been for quite a few years. At the time, my daughter and I were living with my parents as well, because I separated from my daughter's father, and then
Was that a traumatic experience or that was just a relationship
that was a
breakdown?
relationship breakdown.
Yeah,
Yep,
okay.
that wasn't a traumatic experience. But between the relationship breakdown with himself and then me meeting new people, the new people that I'd met
Yeah.
in between that time frame had all turned to I would enter into the relationships clean, and then we would go down the path of using it again.
Right.
So, and then the relationship would break down, and then I would end, and then I'd get clean.
Okay.
So my relationship, I like to look at me using as a relationship with my drug, really.
I was going to ask,
Yeah.
what did it give you? What do you feel? What did it fill a hole? Did it
Yeah.
provide something to you?
Yeah.
Clearly,
Yeah, it did. It provided me with the confidence that I needed. I don't. So the thing with methamphetamine, and a lot of people may not realise, for myself, and I can't express for anyone else, because for me, myself, it became everything I wanted it to be. And that's the real lure point for people. If you are in your lowest times, it can be that support for you. It can be that friend. It can be that partner, even though it's a drug.
Yeah.
Because you can't live without it. You would normally, in an ideal world, when you're having a relationship with a partner, you would turn to your partner and you would talk to them about your worries. In that specific circumstance, I would turn to the drug because it'd take away all that stuff and I wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. So,
Incredibly powerful, isn't it?
so even through my chapter in my life, after losing my parents, I still needed to go through another grief process with the drug later down the track. Yeah. But mum and dad, I absolutely adore my parents. I've started to crumble.
To slowly. So
yeah.
I find it interesting because we have had a reasonable number of women come on and talk about the impact of trauma, and it may not specifically be one event, but an accumulation
Yeah.
where the trauma becomes pretty much the ignition
Yeah.
for it all. So
Yeah.
even prior to your mum and dad
Yeah.
passing away,
Yeah.
clearly there was something.
Yeah, there was something there. I think, for a very early young age, I think I was around 15 when my mother first got diagnosed with cancer. So I was very young. I was still a teenager. So it was the emotional roller coaster of up and down, of not knowing when. I was quite hypervigilant. I was thinking about all these other scenarios down the track that, and I think with that, in that perspective, with my parents, the emotional roller coaster going up and down, and I'm not blaming anything, 100%, I can only look back at my life and think the emotional roller coaster of up and that took its toll, and for me to move past it, I didn't have the coping skills. I didn't have the supports or know where to even reach out to get help. It wasn't until I reached out with some cancer counselling with my mum before she passed that it was that lady that had said some quite profound things to me that at the time it didn't sink in until later down the track that I could actually reflect back on it. So, you know, these tools that I'm forever packing into my toolbox to help me continue on in life. But at the time, I didn't notice it.
It's interesting, that comment as well, isn't it? Because in many ways you always need to be ready to receive it.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to be emotionally, mentally
right.
in the right place.
Yeah, yeah.
And
definitely.
It's like giving up an addiction. Only you can do it when you're ready
Yep.
because the people around you can only try to help
Yeah.
you and support you,
Yep.
but they can't make
Yep.
you do it.
And the same is when I was trying to leave one of my domestic violence relationships. The people around me, my mum around me, kept telling me, you need to leave, you need to leave. But I know what I needed to do, but it wasn't until I needed to do it when the time was right
Yeah.
and the time was ready for me.
And thank God it was while you were still okay.
Yeah,
and here.
yeah. And like the amount of work that I've done on myself now to be able to recognise different flags and like red flags, it's just like, oh my God, why did I stay in them for so long?
It's interesting that, I mean, domestic violence, I mean, it's such still an incredible society issue. And women are still dying week by week
Yeah.
in these circumstances.
Yeah.
And you wonder if the system is failing. Is there do we need more support? Do we need, I don't know, more structures around making it easier for women?
So I know within the industry that I work in now, there are, for myself, I've noticed that there are a lot more supports like apps-wise that you can reach out to get support. There are like helplines that you can actually contact. And to be honest, when I was living it, I never noticed any of those signs on the back of the toilet door. I never noticed any of, you know, if you're experiencing domestic violence, call this number. I was so immersed in the environment that thought did not come to my mind at the time.
And it may not have been so prevalent
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
All those
Yep.
Educational sort of
Yeah.
posters and
Yeah. So, you know, from that, if something is evolving later on for people, like I think just being able to know what supports are out there and like, you know, stuff that's not going to be traced back to the partner at the time can actually track them and find out what they're doing and all that stuff. And the Women's Refuge for myself, when they supported me, were absolutely amazing. They were so lovely and so understanding. And it's that sense of security, which even though I had my own home, it's that sense of self-security.
Yeah.
So they were able to help me.
Yeah.
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 And I think that was just amazing. Amazing step to where I needed to go. Yeah.
Can I ask, when you were homeless, where did you sleep and how did you feel safe at night?
I slept down near the Back Beach Cafe, which is just down there, behind the basketball courts. You know the basketball courts? There's a little lean-to there. I had a vehicle, but I could only, like, it was unregistered, so I couldn't drive it much. It was only just from there to Rocky Point and back again. I would store my stuff. I would pitch my tent every night, and I would sleep in my tent. At least I felt a bit of security.
Did you have any encounters? Did you have any situations?
So I befriended a person from the In-Town Lunch Centre. He was a male. He is just such a big teddy bear. He would not hurt a fly, but it's just that security in numbers.
Yeah.
I made sure that where I stayed, there was always CCTV cameras within our shop. Whether or not I knew anyone was manning them or not was another story, but I had faith that I would be safe. And so I did make sure that wherever I stayed, there were security cameras. My friend would lay his swag out on the outside of the tent. So he'd be on the outside and I'd be on the inside of my tent.
Yeah.
And so just that little peace of mind. I never came across any encounters myself,
God, yeah.
but I stayed on the outskirts,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah.
The only encounters I had was with the Rangers.
Yeah, I was going to ask you,
Yeah.
were you like
Yeah.
pitching a tent? Were they like, come on?
The Rangers were really, really understanding.
Oh, that's
They were empathetic. The only times that they would have to act is when there was a complaint from just the general public. If I'd left my tent up too long,
Oh,
or I
okay.
put it up too early.
Yeah.
So it's really trying to find that balance point. Generally, you know, as soon as the sun goes down, my tent's up. That's how I would roll. And then obviously going to bed early, you're an early riser. So I'd be up early. My tent was dropped by 7 o'clock in the morning. And that was words from the ranger. As long as I drive past at 7 o'clock in the morning and the tent's dropped down and you're sitting there having a cup of coffee, I don't know anything. So he was really understanding. And we kept our area nice and clean. Like, you know, where we would stay, obviously the school kids would go down there, you know what I mean? So it'd there'd be rubbish and, you know, so generally every evening when we'd go back to that spot, we would go around, we'd pick up all the rubbish from the day and then we would put all our rubbish in there from the night and then every morning walking past, we'd walk past the bin and drop all the rubbish back off. So you never knew that we were really
should
there.
have been on the payroll,
I
shouldn't
know.
you? You were doing
Well,
a
I
good
felt
job
like
there.
I felt like
Absolutely.
spiritually I was working, like, you know, and yeah. So only a couple of times did we hear some rowdiness going over in the distance. We didn't always stay at that spot.
Yeah.
We did get moved on one time. So we went out to, it was around Easter, we went out to the Collie River and stayed just opposite the Collie River there in the bit of scrubland just off Collie River off to the left.
So
over the
there'd be
hill.
all the usual locations
Yeah.
that you would know you could,
Yeah, I had an encounter at the other spot that I was in Collie River. The police came out, and it was only because someone noticed my car. You know, they didn't even know that I was camping in the bush. Yeah. Like, you know, but I couldn't drive my car in the bush. But I could see my car from where we were camped, but they couldn't see me. So, and eventually we got moved on from there because we lit a fire in a campfire to cook our breakfast on.
Yeah.
And the rangers came. And he said, look, if you didn't like the fire, we'd be fine with it.
Yeah.
But, you know, we
Okay.
wanted to eat.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah.
that was a difficult time out there. I loved the area. We're looking straight across the canals into these massive big mansions that were all vacant and empty. And it was just like, oh, my God.
That's so
Like,
frustrating.
I remember crying myself to sleep so many times, even down out there and down here. Like, you know, oh, my God, like, can't they just let me in there just for the weekend? Like,
Yeah, therein lies the contrast
Yeah.
of the have and the have-nots in
Yeah,
that case, isn't it?
Do you, I get silly question. Of course, you have a lot of insights now into what could be done, and it's not that simple, is it? But do you see some obvious things that could be done to help homelessness?
yeah. Yeah, I see some things, especially where we are in the climate that we are in at the moment and the resources that are available here locally in Bunbury. I do see that we potentially may have a need for just a crisis accommodation.
And what would that look like?
So for myself, that would look like somewhere for people to come and stay just overnight.
Yeah,
They take their belongings with them.
yeah.
It's not open during the day.
Yep.
So it just opens at 6, like, you know, 5:30.
And it would
6
have
o'clock at
people
night.
there as security.
Yep.
Yep.
Have people
Okay.
manning it. You would have obviously other workers there overseeing.
Yep.
It can provide them with a meal for the night.
So kitchen and
Kitchen
ablution
facility,
sort of
Maybe
shower,
dinner
toilet.
and then
toilet
breakfast in
shower.
the morning.
You know, lockers for them to
Yep.
put their stuff in overnight, so
Yep.
no one like steals that. They can, and I would also incorporate that into prevention space as well.
Mm-hmm.
Prevention for homelessness. So actually have your pamphlets, your flyers.
Yep.
You know, possibly support services coming there to be able to support those who are rough sleeping if they're wanting to change. Because
Yep.
we also have to remember that not everyone wants a home.
No, that's right.
No?
Yes.
So, but by providing that safe space for them to sleep at night, it's amazing how much that can help the mental health, your own mental health. Because I never really got a good night's sleep when I was sleeping out in the street. Like, you know, I was always sleeping with one eye open in case, like, you know, and one ear up so that I could hear anything because I needed to know that I was safe. So at times when I was really, really tired, to sleep, Bunbury Library was absolutely great. In the air conditioning, sitting on a beanbag with my sunglasses on, which was very rare. On the weekends, if I had a really tough night, we would go down and watch the cricket down at the oval down here, and we'd lay out a picnic blanket, and then I'd just lay there and it just looked like to the public that I was watching cricket.
Yeah.
You know, I tried to blend in as much as possible. But yes, I have recognised where I feel that there potentially may be some needs.
Great.
And obviously in that space, I would have like a women's and family
Yep. And then a separate one.
And
for-
yep. And potentially just a couple of emergency beds
Yes.
available for anyone coming from the hospitals, or that may need somewhere to sleep just for the night. And I think by creating a space like that, it's a hub.
And it would be in town.
So myself, it would be just out of town.
Oh.
Yeah, I would make it just out of town.
Yeah.
Personally, myself. And I have my own reasons around that. I think, you would, if people were really, really wanting a room, they would make their way there.
So you're saying like
Distance is
too
not
far
gonna
from
be-
town, or just
too
in
far.
the LIA? Just
Not even in the LIA. I'm thinking down this way towards the Plaza
Okay,
Way, just
yep.
something. So it's a bit of a distance. They have to make a conscious decision about if they really want, if they really want to have a safe space for them for
Yeah.
the night. I mean, obviously, they're like personally myself, I would incur just a small fee, just $5, something like that.
But if you can't,
But if you can't, that's
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So it's also encouraging them and empowering them to
Yes.
start taking charge of their life.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Wow, there's so many layers to that.
Yeah, there is, isn't there?
So-
Let's
and plus you've also got security as well.
Yes,
So
the
there's so
big
many. So
thing.
for myself, I can understand the policies around why someone hasn't created that, but it would be an amazing space, and it would also act for prevention. And I think prevention is also a key too.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's tackling that
Yeah.
as well.
makes so much sense, doesn't it? To stop it before it actually becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk. Let's talk also about the other incredible strength you've shown in the meth addiction that
Yeah,
you had.
yep.
How easy was it for you to access?
Easy.
Easy.
It didn't help that through the relationship that I was in at the time, it was family.
Yep. Okay.
It was just there, copious amounts.
Yeah. Right.
So, and even through my journey of not doing it, it was like you're faced with people that hand it to you and give it to you for nothing, trying to get you, not so much trying to get you back into it, but just trying to do it with them, to have fun.
Here you go.
You know, and that's just so easy to fall back into that path.
Particularly when it is making you feel so much better about yourself and where you are and what you're doing. Yeah.
But it wasn't until I had to face the fact of my parents passing away and I was high as a kite when they passed
Really.
that at the time when I was using, when they were passing away, when they passed away, the drug became what I needed it to be at the time. So it became something that took away all the outside that was going on, and I could focus on what was actually happening. And them going, it was, so that's why I say that drug can be whatever you want it to be. It can be that weight loss drug. It can be that, that confidence booster. It can be, it can be so many different things, and it's so scary because of the destruction that it does.
Oh, I can't imagine.
Some of the stuff I can't remember what I've done, but yeah, it's about working on myself to try and, deal with these things as they arise now. Normally in the past, I'd take drugs to hide it, to not have to worry about dealing with it.
So how many years are you now drug-free?
I'm coming up to 7 years clean.
Wow,
Ooh,
congratulations.
Fantastic. Well done.
Yes.
It's a long time.
Yes. And I can't see myself ever going back there.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of recovering addicts go, they never say never. But, I've just got so much to live for. My daughters, I want to be a part of her achievements and celebrate them with her. And, I want to remember these years. I feel as a mother using for such a long period of her time when she was young, I felt robbed of those times. And that was because of my own choices.
Yeah.
And I don't want that. My daughter had seen me through that, and she'd also experienced some of the hard times with me. And I want to show her the best version of me moving forward.
Oh, it's just such fantastic sentiments
Yeah.
to hear you saying.
Yeah.
Gee, what a journey.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. 7 years ago, I was homeless. So, I just look at it and just go, wow, I've just come so far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. I reckon your daughter must be pretty proud of you, Anne, after all that. Yeah, she would be.
Yeah. Yes,
That's
she is.
awesome.
She is very proud of me.
And we're genuinely in awe as well
thank
of what you have gone through. And it's really awesome that you are so freely speaking
Yeah.
about it as well, because, here at the WOW, we're very much about passing on all that information.
Yeah.
And we all know that it takes a village. You've spoken about the support that has helped you,
Yeah.
to be able to take those next steps.
Yeah, definitely. I think myself through I've learnt through my own journey about what I felt like that I needed in my life to help support me. So originally it started off with, and I'm saying this because now I can look back on those things. At the time I didn't know why I was doing them, but I look back at them now and go, that was part of my life and part of my chapter. Like art therapy was a big one for me to help me. And then I had the animal rehabilitation, they're just that nurturing from something so little. And then I reached out to a drug support unit here in Bunbury after many times driving past and looking and going, oh, I should go in there. And this one day I turned around and went straight back in there, and I spoke to lovely Lena, who had the founder of Doors Wide Open, and Julie. And I didn't know what the place even done back then.
Yeah.
I didn't know that support service was there. I just felt like I was ready and I wanted to give back. And when I went in there and spoke with Lena, she said, do you know what we do here? And I said, no. And she told me, she shared with me her life story around her son's addiction. And then I shared with her my story, and she's like, you're meant to be here. And I felt like that I was meant to have been there. I was at this stage, I was 7 months clean from methamphetamines, and reached out, and I continue to go back to that place day in, day out. I was quite nervous and shy when it came to speaking, and I would hide away. And
well, can I just say now that you do speak beautifully?
Yeah.
Do I?
I haven't had any
my
problem with
God.
you going on.
Good. Thank you. You wouldn't think so back. I think I was broken back then,
Yeah.
and I was still trying to repair myself. And I think the trust and the mistrust that I'd had in people had led me to not trust anyone. But I learnt through my life and homelessness, I had to actually give a little bit of trust to people. So this day that I was at Doors, I was looking at, that person's back again. Oh, that must be all right. And then I slowly started to build up some courage to go out and start talking to them. And then a couple of years later, I was working there. I was working 1 day a week. Lena offered me 1 day a week as a peer mentor for people. And then 1 day a week I worked and the other day I volunteered, but I was down there every single day. And at that time we were running on Saturdays and Sundays.
Wow.
That space just it became my family, another family. So I had an extended family and massive support group. Before, as I progressed and I ended up working there 25 hours a week, I started, Lena handed over to me the women's circles, and I started running women's groups. And it was just an amazing, humble experience to be sitting down with these other women and sharing stories and hard times. And, I may be 7 years clean, but I still have my struggles. It's every day I'm in recovery every day. It's not like I've woken up and I'm free from that. It's going to be an ongoing work. So at Doors, to be able to sit down and share openly about how I'm feeling, or, I and other people that are out there that are watching this that may, they may experience the using nightmares. They are real. I do have them from time to time where I'm using in my dream, or it's right there. The meth is right there in my dream, and I don't use it, but I'm trying to use it. And
Subconsciously, it's there.
Yeah, it's always there. So I think in those particular moments, to be able to wake up and go to Doors when I would, and I'd just share, oh my God, I had a using dream, or a using nightmare, we used to call them, and share it. I released it, and it's not holding on to me anymore, and it's not in my head to fester for me to want to go and use. So it's providing that safe space where you can share openly about what you're experiencing, because there is no science around this stuff. No. I feel like I'm a walking, living proof that you can break free from that, but you're not completely free. You're always still going to be working through something.
And how incredibly special to to be able to share all your experience and everything that you've gone through with other people. And again, this has been just such a huge theme. It's people connecting.
Yeah.
It's people feeling safe in
Yeah.
an environment to share their deepest, most
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
powerful times of hurt and
Yeah.
pain
Yeah.
and shame, letting go
Yeah.
of that.
Yep.
And knowing that filled a part, didn't it, for a period of time?
Yeah. And I think you feel vulnerable when you have to share all that stuff. Like, well, whilst I was at Doors Wide Open, I was able to link in and be a part of a restorative justice program that was held at the Bunbury Prison, and it was called the Sycamore Tree Project. And part of that is sitting down with other residents and we share our life story, so
Yeah.
from start to finish.
Wow.
So we may be touching base on some stuff today, but sitting down and sharing deeply with these guys about my life and through my addiction and some of the stuff that I went through there, like with affiliation, all that type of stuff, I was able to share in depth with these guys and they get it. They get it. I could say a lot of the things that happened to me in addiction and people would go, oh, you're crazy. But sharing it with these guys, they're just like, they would pull me aside at Smoko and at lunch and they go, you know what, when you had all that stuff going on with your computer and, or my banking was hacked and, he goes, I used to do that to other people,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
and he goes, I'm so sorry that you went through all that. Like, he goes, you've certainly changed my views on it now.
Understanding the impact of
The
your
impact,
own actions.
yeah.
They're seeing the victim.
Yeah, seeing it. So I got to share because I was going there as a visitor, but from a victim. And then they were also there sharing their stories, and I got to see it from their perspective.
Wow, that's
And, I think that so each week we would work on something different. So one of the weeks was forgiveness, another week was the ripple effect, and I did this program 3 times. And each time I worked on something different about myself. There's grief in the process. I've walked away with so many tools.
us, but maybe they're sympathising. Maybe they're fighting the inside voice. How do I help this person? Does this need help?
Yeah.
Person need help?
Yep.
Or should I just keep going? Is this person dangerous, or are they actually crying out for help?
Yeah.
So what sometimes we think is judgment is actually not. Sometimes it is.
Sometimes it's
Yeah.
just you just don't know how to support them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
you're unsure.
Yeah, and I think for myself in the role that I'm working in now, if there's anything like that, I think the only thing that you can do is be honest and say, look, I'm sorry, I'm not the right person for this. I'll see if I can find someone.
That's
Many a times when I reached out to Accord West. Accord West were absolutely wonderful. They helped me out with blankets and that as well. The lady my caseworker at the time was absolutely amazing. She applied. I had a Department of Housing debt, so I was unable to apply for bond assistance to get in. She applied for a grant that helped wipe out some of that debt for me, and then I just had to pay a payment plan for the extra $300. She was absolutely wonderful. It wasn't until later on, because I wasn't completely honest with her. I'll be honest. I was telling her,
half true.
like I was trying to pull the wool over people's eyes because I was ashamed. I was too scared. I had my daughter in my care. The last thing I want to be going to do is tell organisations that, hey, I'm using meth and, I've got my daughter in my care in fear that she was going to get taken from me through the department. you know. So I felt like constantly I was living this life, this secret life. But as it worked out, my caseworker at Accord West, I admitted eventually later down the track that she said, I knew you were,
Yeah.
you know, but she still supported me.
Yeah.
And she was absolutely amazing. So, you know, I think there is that. Sometimes I think it's also our own judgment of ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and, you know, so the area that I work in now is absolutely amazing. It's person-centred, so we meet people where they're at and, you know, we support them. And if they don't want to go, then that's fine. It's their own choice. It's that freedom of choice,
Yes.
you know, and understanding that today may not be a good day and that's okay. Yeah.
Wow. Tell you what, blows me away listening to you.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Me too.
Oh, you are incredibly inspiring.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't see it sometimes.
Oh, yeah. Goodness.
I try to be. I try to be the shining light of hope for other people. Yeah. So, and I live my life in the event that, heaven forbid, if anyone else walks in my path later when I'm gone, that it gives them that hope that they too will be able to come out the other side.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. Good on you.
Sorry, you've got me crying all the way
Yeah.
through.
Oh.
I've been a mess.
And we love a good quote here in the WOW.
Okay. So I like the quote that I like to live by is, be the change you want to see in this world.
Oh, yeah.
And I think for myself, that could be taken in so many different contexts and different ways, but be that change. And it could be used for so many different parts of my journey. You know, be the survivor, be the change, you know, inspire
Yeah.
like other
Yeah.
people.
The concept of change can be quite frightening for a lot of
Yeah.
people, but if you don't change, nothing changes.
Yeah, and it's the fear of the unknown. You know, we always fear the unknown and we're too scared to take that giant leap
Yeah.
because we don't know what's on the other side.
No.
But I'm glad that I took that giant leap because it's been nothing but wonderful. Lonely, right at the very beginning when I started to break free from my addiction, it was very, very lonely because I didn't have all those acquaintances that were in my life at the time were all using. So for me to break away from that meant that I had to break away from every single one of them. So I was lonely. I did it. I put myself around people that I didn't even know, you know, just to try and get away from it. And it was lonely. But I think through putting myself in that situation, I've been able to allow myself to do the things that I want to do and to allow what I like. And I was able to give myself the opportunity to grow into this wonderful person that I am today
Yeah.
by taking that giant leap of faith. And those acquaintances that were in my life at the time were just acquaintances. They were only there for one thing.
That's right.
You know, the amazing people that I've met in this chapter of my life feel like that they're there for a lifetime and they feel such a void. But my heart at the beginning felt like a hole. It had a hole in my heart. But I can guarantee and assure you that it has been filled with nothing but joy and nothing but the most amazing people. And I also live by another quote: people are in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And at the moment in my life, the ones that I cross paths with that have helped me to get to where I am today are there for a lifetime. And members of the community that did not even meet me, that still have helped me to get to where I am. I when I was on the street, I received it was quite cold. It was around winter, and these people, I don't know, it's an organisation of ladies, I think, that knit gloves and scarves and beanies. And this one day, I went into the Shoestring Cafe, and there was a Ziploc bag with a knitted beanie, a matching scarf, and some fingerless gloves. And I didn't know the person, but it had a sticker on it from someone who cares.
Oh.
And I cried. Because how much it meant to be able, someone cared, and I didn't even know who this person was. So, and it still nearly makes me cry to this day when I think about that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, just those little tiny things that have helped me to get me to where I am, and I will never meet that person ever.
And they will never probably realise the impact,
Yeah.
the profound impact
Yeah.
that they had in your life.
100%.
Right at that point in
Yep.
time. You needed that person.
I needed that person, and I needed that quote, and I needed that saying. And it was just absolutely amazing.
I love that.
I'm tearing up now. Sorry.
With all your experience, everything that you've been through and the challenges that you've met and moved on from, what do you think is something that all women should hear once in their life?
You are good enough. You are good enough and you're worth it. Don't be afraid of adversity because with that you build resilience.
Amazing.
Oh, such
quite
good, strong
beautiful.
words.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. And thank you so very
thank
much
you.
for coming in today. It's been an awesome chat. I'm sure we
Thank
could
you.
sit here for another hour or so.
Yeah.
We really, really appreciate it.
You're welcome anytime.
Now, if you have been affected by any of the topics discussed in this conversation, then we will leave some links below for you to check out. And if you enjoy listening to this, then please consider subscribing and putting a notification on so you can know when we have a new episode up.
Thank you.
You're
Thanks so
welcome.
much.
You're welcome. Thank you for the invitation.
And always remember,
Every day.
You are remarkable.